Well, good morning, Fairfield friends. I'm here with my friend and our colleague and our leader, Mayor Connie Boyer. I'm doing this interview with Connie because I support her candidacy. Connie has been an exemplary leader, steady and really focusing on the elements that put together our civic life and make it better now and will make it better in the future. So, Connie, thank you very much for being with me.
Well, thanks, Bob, for giving me this opportunity to sit and chat with you and talk about where we're going.
That's great. So let's dive right into it. Where are we going?
Well, let's
Tell us about the future.
yes. Well, let's talk about maybe some top three priorities because I think those kind of say it. Now we won't get into the weeds probably, but the housing initiatives that we have going on, I think are really important. And we finally have, I feel, gotten our feet on the ground and we're walking the talk and we're definitely moving forward. And we're doing that in cooperation, particularly with Grow Fairfield. And the manufacturers are going to step up, so that's kind of cool. But things that the city can do really are, there's a couple things. Number one, we recently applied for with Grow Fairfield and Iowa State Extension to further our housing initiatives and our housing plan. So, we did that housing readiness assessment in 2023. And we did that with Iowa State Extension. We got some really good information out of there about how to move forward, how many houses we need to tear down a year, which is nearly impossible, and how many to build, which again, just to keep up with our numbers, it's a difficult task. However, they loved the process so much and felt that Fairfield got so much good information that we should take the next step. So the application is through the state of Iowa, and we would be making what they're calling is the playbook. So again, it's just another step after the housing readiness.
Right.
And we're already taking some of those steps, right? Right now we're working on the infrastructure at the Sunrise Trail development just south of town and down by the child care center and the hospital. That will provide housing for some of our executives that come in. We hear from many employers when they try to bring people in to hire, they can't find housing. So sometimes they're living outside of Fairfield, which is unfortunate. So we're really hoping that will provide space for some of the higher earners, but also people who are maybe middle earners that are now ready to take a step up. And then that will allow their house for other people to step up. So, it's that the rising tide lifts all boats. So that's the essence of that. So the other thing is on the you could say maybe the other perspective is that we have a couple policies to write within the city code. And that has to do with low to moderate income housing. And the city has what's called a low to moderate income fund. There's approximately 200,000 in that fund. And we can use that for Habitat for Humanity, which we did this year. For many years, we've given Habitat 10,000 a year for their next house. And that has come out of local option sales tax. But because this last year, in this fiscal year, we used more things. We used more local option sales tax for some budget items that we didn't have room for in the general item. So that squeezed that fund a little bit. And we wanted to make sure that we could fund as many community projects in that community betterment space as possible. So I suggested, hey, let's this fiscal year, use our low to moderate income funds, which is already in our policy and we could use it. So that's what we did. But we can also use low to moderate income funds to help our developers. We're trying to do a small matching grant, again, with Grow Fairfield as a partnership so that It helps the developers bring down their cost. And because, developers have to take on quite a bit of risk to build homes, and especially if you're going to build several of them, because, they've got to pay for it. And can they get that house sold, right?
Right.
So that's one thing. And along with that, I'm going to digress just a little bit. We applied for Thriving Communities. Thriving Communities is a program through, again, the state of Iowa, the economic development arm. And we just barely missed getting that designation. So we'll apply again in the spring. I'm like 99% sure we will get it. We needed a little bit more strength in support from manufacturers. I just don't think that came through to
Yeah. Right.
them, the strength that we do have. So we're just gonna, we're gonna really tell that story about the strength that we have and that relationship with manufacturers and what they want to see in housing and how they're participating. So when we get that designation, that helps developers when they are applying for housing tax credits. All of that is based on a point system. And when they're trying to develop in a Thriving Communities designation, they get more points.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, so then they have more chance to get housing tax credits. And
Right.
those housing tax credits are $30,000 a unit,
That's considerable. That is
right?
considerable, yes.
So again, that makes it easier for them to take less risk in building in a community. So the other thing I want to mention with low to moderate income is that there is something called a Rural Housing Trust Fund that is a grant, basically kind of through the Area 15 area. It was done up in Ottumwa. There's a gentleman named Matt Nauman, who handles that program. And so let's say that a person with lower income needs a new furnace, a new roof,
Yep.
the deck on their house is falling apart. They need new windows, whatever, kind of those structural things that are already there. You can't build something new onto your house, but
Right.
something that you already have that needs fixed, but you just don't have the money to fix it. You can get $12,000 grants to that program. And then years later, whenever you sell your house, that grant goes back into the pot from the sale of your house and to fund another grant. But let's face it, $12,000 doesn't go very far these days, right? In construction,
Not very far, right?
So, and if the person has to have, let's just say the project's 14,000 and they get a $12,000 grant, but the project's really 14 and they don't have the other 2,000, then they can't do the project. But if Fairfield contributes 1 to 3,000 to that project, so they can get that project done and help stay in their home, we want to write that policy so that we can put a little bit more in there, and this would be for just Jefferson County residents.
That's great. That's great. Then how about the low end, the beginning end? We have had some conversation about the potential of creating a little tiny home subdivision.
Yeah.
Is that any kind of a possibility?
I think that's a possibility. I know Ed Malloy and I have talked to different people. We are kind of, it's not something the city develops, if you will, but we're laying the groundwork so that the codes and ordinances allow such things.
Right.
And it's a matter of getting the right people together
Yep.
and getting the right organization around it to make that happen. So, but what that takes is, first of all, it takes the right group of people to make it happen. It also takes something called a planned unit development. And we already have that ordinance in place. But because you're putting multiple homes in a smaller space, you've got to get that planned unit development written and ready to go. So some of the, we already have planned unit developments in the community. So Martin Brett's projects have been planned unit developments. If you think of the triplexes that are up on South 3rd Street, between 3rd and 4th, where the old Catholic Church was, those are Buzz Allen's
Right, right.
units,
Yeah,
and those are a planned unit development.
yeah.
So actually, the other night, I had a young gentleman come to me and we talked about that. So I have pulled together a couple of those documents to give to him so that he can understand kind of what the process is
Right.
and what that looks like. Because he felt like he could probably put together a group of contractors
Hmm.
to talk about that.
Right.
And so again, those would be homes that would be much smaller, under probably 600 square feet, probably between 3 and 600 square feet on a foundation versus one on wheels where you come in and out,
Right. Right.
Um, so definitely, I think we got people interested. It's a matter of getting organized and making it happen.
That's great.
And along with that, also want to mention that, I don't know, 3 years ago, 4 years ago, we changed the code down in the zoning area behind Hy-Vee.
Yeah.
And there are smaller lots there. So you can build a smaller house there. And I'm hoping over time that area, it could be a very nice place to live. It's close to the
Walking
grocery store
away.
within walking distance.
Walking
Lower
away.
potentially, somebody who has not quite as many means, but so they have easy access to services.
That's great. Well, what this tells me, Connie, is that the health of a community is really the interaction of creativity on the part of citizens and an enabling function, because oftentimes codes and other ordinances are involved in order to be able to do something. And then the capacity of the city to gather funds and to you know, promote programs on the state level that we can use locally. So I really salute you for that level of creativity and kind of breadth of vision. So okay, so that's number one thing in the
Number
future.
one.
What else is in our future?
So, one of the things that I'd like to see the city do is a new strategic plan. And, you know, a community-wide one was done over 20 years ago when Ed Malloy was in his early stages of being,
23, 2003.
yeah.
Yeah.
So, right now, Grow Fairfield this last year did their strategic plan, as well as Chamber did their strategic plan, which is all great information, right? City of Fairfield did a just kind of city government plan about 5 years ago, and it was only a 5-year plan.
Right.
And so we've done quite a few of those things. We've focused on quite a few of those things. There's a few outliers. There's a few things that are sort of not really city government function things. They're more of a community thing.
Yep.
And so, but let's look at what VEDA's doing. Let's look at what Chamber's doing. How do they intersect? How do they intersect with the city government?
Right.
And put that together, and look a little bit further ahead. We have the comp plan,
Yep.
which is a 20-year plan, and it's a guideline again. But again, we need to get in the weeds a little bit in that comp plan and really put some to-do things together. So I think we can get more detail there. Also, and then really I'm going into my third thing, which is I think gonna be really important. And it would probably come up in that strategic plan as well. But I really want to put a task force together to talk about some of our buildings.
Hmm.
3 main buildings. So we have City Hall, which is an old building, and we're kind of outgrowing it. We really need 1 or 2 more employees, and that's a little bit of a trick because of budgets. But even if we got one employee, two employees, where are we going to put them? So we're kind of looking at how to reorganize City Hall right now. However, we've got the fire station next year that we'll move out of and go into the new fire station. So then we have a partial building that's not used. So what's the purpose of that building going forward? And then we have the underutilized old Roosevelt School that's attached to the Cambridge complex, right? And the basement of that has a lot of weight equipment in it. One of the rooms upstairs has the indoor playground. I think there's still a pool table, ping pong table, but half the building's not utilized. It needs a new roof, it needs new plumbing, it needs probably new electrical. Is that worth fixing up?
Yeah.
Should we tear it down,
Yeah.
build something else there? Could it be sold and fixed up as a apartment complex? I don't know.
Yeah.
So let's put a task force together of citizens to really get a lot of brain power in there and figure out these buildings. And I'm actually hoping that maybe we'll be one building less as far as the city to have to take care of.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and that's a really important idea. The ability to tap the creativity and really voluntarism of the community to start finding out what actually is so. Because oftentimes in controversial situations or in situations where you've got some choices to make, uh, it isn't it isn't enough just to task the city council and the mayor and the city administrator with that job. It's a big job because you got all the routine stuff to do. So if we can creatively use task force, which are, with diverse people, so you can really find out what the reality of something is. You know, we can move facts around as long as we understand what the real facts are.
Yep.
Then we can have a conversation about how we arrange things in accordance with those facts. But if we don't have the facts, I was at the League of Cities meeting that was fascinating. And there was a contingent from Davenport, a planner and the police chief, talking about what had blown up as a kind of a gun violence situation. And everyone had a theory as to why the gun violence was happening. And they said, well, um, if we miss our guess and we apply a solution to something that isn't actually the problem, then we won't solve the problem. So they created a very well articulated group of people who did nothing for a while but study the problem.
Mm.
And everyone had it was the youth, or it was this, or it was that. And it turns out it was 0.16% of the population that were responsible for 50% of the gun violence. 168 people.
And this was in Iowa City.
Yeah, in Davenport.
Yeah.
168 people out of the entire population. Well, once they knew that, then they could pull all of the social service agencies, which there are many there, but they weren't coordinated focusing on that particular thing and the needs of the people who were responsible for half of the problem. And so they were able to focus that effort, find out what those people needed, what their families needed, what was going on, and they dropped the gun violence dramatically. You can't imagine that happening if they'd applied a solution to a non-problem, right? Something to that was, and I personally feel, since I'm running unopposed, there's probably a pretty good chance I'll be on the city council. Um, I really want us to think in those terms as often as we possibly can. So it's really music to my ears to think about harnessing the collective intelligence of the community to find different options, and then we can choose among them. That's really great.
And that's really where that study comes down to these three buildings, we know Roosevelt needs help if we're going to continue to use that building. And even the old fire station has some structural issues.
Yeah.
It's a great basement, but also there's lots of room down there, but it's also you feel like you're in a bunker and if there's a fire up there, how do you get out? So to me, that's a safety issue. But anyway, we all know that these buildings all need some different upgrades or to make them more functionable for the city. So that study is it's gonna take a while.
Yeah.
But let me bring up, based on what you just said, and let's talk about Main Street. Because
Oh, yes.
before I became mayor, there were a lot of studies done, right? We had a walkability study, we've had a couple downtown assessment study, wayfinding. There's been several things that have been suggested and two-way streets was one of them. Um, and that was very well supported by our downtown. It was not supported by my opponent. He voted no on that to move forward with that. Um, and I think that's why Main Street became so important
Yes.
now is
The actual Main Street designation.
the Main Street
We're now part
designation.
of the Main Street
Yes.
program. Yeah.
And now we have a board to tackle some of these issues and be our partner, you
Yes.
know? Because it does anything the city does takes money and planning. And so far the council did not move forward on any of that planning. They did not allocate any funds to do anything. And I'm not saying that's right or wrong, and that's not necessarily a criticism. I'm just saying that that's the nature of where we are at this point. But that's where I see truly, again, the value of Main Street. We've got another partner. We've got more people, more citizens involved. And where does the city fit in? Well, one of the big things where the city fits in is becoming what's called a local certified government. And that's basically some paperwork to turn in. And what that allows is building owners to get historic tax credits when they're restoring their building. And I don't know all the details about that, but apparently we were a local certified government at one time. And I don't know if there was a renewal process that got dropped. I'm not really sure. We have Mandy Ford, who's very bright in this area. She's working on that. Really appreciate her for doing that. And then along with that, the Main Street at the state level has a guideline for restoration of buildings and what the city can adopt as guidelines. Now, the city could get in the weeds and be real picky about certain things, which I don't see the city doing that at this point. I
Right.
think it'd be more broad guidelines to start because we want to make it easy if somebody wants to restore their building. But also those are a couple things that the city needs to do. Those are important things, and that's how we'll support Main Street as well as financially, which we're doing through local option sales tax. But I
And
want to, yeah, go ahead,
also,
Bob.
we fundraised for the director. So that was a combination. That was actually primarily, if I understand correctly, that was primarily individuals who came up, individuals and businesses who stepped forward to support it.
Yeah,
So yeah, that's a truly community effort. The
yeah,
other thing I think that we've got going for us is we have had the Resilient Action Committee active, and I've been quite impressed with some of the planning structures. I know they're moving off into their own 501(c)(3), but that's also a, a data input that we can use, particularly through the lens of sustainability, because I'm a big fan of that. Because as a friend of mine said, well, if you're not into sustainability, what are you into? So we definitely want to do that. So that's also another asset, isn't it?
yes, yeah, and that's where since I became mayor, I've encouraged people to if there's something important to you, gather the people that have that similar value. Because we know at the city level, there's only so much time to go around
Right,
for council members, for myself, for city staff. They can't do it all. And
right.
so, what they're bringing to you is your sewer and water and your streets, the basics, you know what I'm saying? The function, the real function of what city government does. And some of this outside stuff that is not a function of that, we need people to do.
Yeah, yeah,
And yes, you can plug in and come to the city and say, "Hey, I need your help on this." Okay, so how does the city function? Plug into that. How do we support that project? Um, and that's one reason I restarted the volunteer center. Has it been low level? Yes. Is it as big as I want it to be? No. Has the Resilient Action Committee also taken a portion of that and running with it in certain areas? Yes, which is awesome, right? there's a lot of things that happen at the volunteer center, which again is not much of a volunteer center other than a few core people. However, they are connecting volunteers with needs, and that's a huge aspect. And so that's done quietly. That's not a big rah rah, everybody knows about it in town, but they are doing that and providing support to residents and connecting people who can help with somebody who has a need.
Yeah,
Um,
I think one of the keys to the kingdom here, in my view, is connecting people who have vision and energy who are not part of the government structure necessarily, uh, and tapping that. We're tapping that in the form of commissions. The reason I became a beautification commissioner was I'm proud of that. So I saw what Deborah Williamson was doing. I mean, just phenomenal energy and just working within the structure, but also deciding, well, why can't we have 71 hanging baskets that cost $300 a piece? Who's going to water them? Well, volunteers. So we had a watering schedule, and I decided I would take on the weeds, right? The weed team. Well, if someone had said, can you get 250 volunteer hours to work over 3 months, 95-degree heat to get rid of all the street and sidewalk weeds in Fairfield, you probably would have said, no, that doesn't sound very practical. But it happened. And we
yeah,
had a joyful time. And we had a whole pile of people involved with that. And the city is forever upgraded. That was one thing that, used to bother me. Oh, what are these weeds doing in Fairfield? So, a private citizen says, okay, we can take care of that. And we gather a bunch of people. So I see that as one of the force multipliers and also one of the elements of our community, which is most powerful. When we had our Intelligent Community Forum site visitor here, that's one of the things he noted. He said, "You guys are just amazing in how many initiatives happen in a fairly small community." So, that's one of the things that I'm running on. So the power of volunteerism, and,
yes,
and I
absolutely.
think we do an excellent job already, and I think we can do even more. So I'll work with you on that volunteer.
Yeah. Well, and
We'll get that amped up.
the one thing we don't do well in volunteerism is tracking our hours.
Oh,
So
okay.
there's a whole national, uh, what do I want to say? A dollar amount to that 1 hour of volunteerism,
Yeah.
and we need to really document that. So at the end of the year, we can say our volunteer hours were worth X amount. I just know that who knows, we might even be number one in the country. That's
Well,
probably a stretch,
well,
but
yeah, and we're already named the top seven in the Intelligent Community Forum, and we now have four of us are going over to Vietnam to
yep.
we get to be number one. And that's I think that's something that we can own and own very proudly. Do we have issues? Of course, every community has issues. Well, Connie, at this point in the discussion, I think it's appropriate to talk about your competition. That's the great thing about our system, right? People get to compete and people get to compare and contrast and make a choice. So I'd like to hear from you again. What is the difference between you and Doug Flournoy in style and substance?
Okay, great. I'll try to be very positive in this, and because that's one thing I've really tried to do, even since I've been mayor. So this is my fourth round, and I think 3 out of those 4 I've had a competitor. I don't want to be negative. Doug and I have been friends for over 20 years. I hope that continues. I believe being positive fosters teamwork. I think that's so important. It's so important for our council members to have teamwork. Not that they agree on everything. That's, we know that's not
Right.
uh, possible to agree on everything. But when you're working as a team, you're able to share and be open and transparent about why you believe what you believe and your position on a particular thing. So again, we got to keep that teamwork going and working together. I think it's really important to be consistent with your words and your actions. Words and actions, do they fit? and be consistent as possible. Try not to flip-flop. Now, sometimes we get new information, right? Where we might want to change our position on something. But again, we have to be really transparent and communicative to the public, to the team of why you've changed your mind on something. However, we also can't risk our city's financial stability. That is just so important. And I believe in that firmly. I think Doug and I have different styles. I'm not a micromanager. Um, I believe that the staff we have are really bright, smart people, and I know they're hardworking. I see it every day when I'm up there. And happy staff and employees are ones that have the freedom and the responsibility to do their job. Yes, sometimes I'm asked to make an executive decision on something, and I'm happy to do that. But most of these decisions are collaborative with the staff, and I think that's the best way we can function.
Right.
Versus somebody kind of being the boss and telling people what to do all the time. I think that creates happy people, happy employees, satisfied people, and I think we have that. We have good staff, smart. They know what to do. They just need the freedom to go do it. And when they need guidance, they come and ask, and they feel comfortable to do that. And sometimes they even have to vent a little bit. And, I try to provide space for that, and just let them talk. So I think that's an important point. Listening to them. And I think if citizens and people who are going to go out and vote, if you listen carefully and you watch carefully, you'll see the differences between us.
Yeah, I completely agree. Well, Connie, that's probably enough said about that. But, people can use their eyes and ears and reasoned judgment to decide whose style and whose substance is one that they feel will benefit us the most. So great. Any final comments? I mean, there is so many things we could have talked about. One thing that I would actually love to have us acknowledge as part of this is the tremendous work of Fairfield Cares, because we had given a couple examples of citizen involvement, but Fairfield Cares / Helpful Villages seems to me to be really one of the wonderful new initiatives that's going to allow us to take care of ourselves. For us, for people who have the capacity to help, paired up with high technology, with people who need help. So talk to us a little bit about your perceptions of that.
Well, I have to tell you, I have a personal story. Before Fairfield Cares, it really became an organization. And I think this is why it's so important that we continue and support that organization. So in 2016, my mother was dying. And it became very apparent. This came suddenly. And I'm out of us 4 siblings, I'm the only one that's here in Fairfield. So, it became my responsibility to make sure that my mother was taken care of. Now, not to say that my other siblings didn't help, because they did. And my sister flew back from California 2 or 3 times within 6 weeks. And there were a couple times when it was so important she was there. However, at one point I reached out to Jennifer Hamilton and I said, I need help. Do you have any caregivers that I can call? And she gave me the name of a person that I end up hiring. And he was an angel sent from heaven, as far as I'm concerned. And I got some help from, family friend as well. So we got through it without my mother having to go to a facility. We did it at home, and just really thankful. That's what she wanted. But the point was, I couldn't have gotten through it without friends and Jennifer Hamilton's help. And the fact that there's been this growing need in our community, and she has been so important along with her close knit people. And now this has been all grown, homegrown, really without much help from government. Government can't save us, right? And they can't fund it all. And so this has just been a tremendous example of the power of individuals collectively coming together to help our community. And I feel like it's really just kind of the beginning.
Yeah, definitely the beginning. It's certainly one of the models. And again, one of the observations that our ICF reviewer said is that you'll have a tremendous capacity to collaborate.
Yeah.
See this across the community where people are not in silos, but they're really cross fertilizing. And oh, that's a good idea. May I play too? You know,
Yeah.
that kind of ethic is really important. Well, Connie, any final thoughts before we leave?
Well, I think my last final thought is I hope we do this one or two more times because we got a lot of things that we didn't talk about.
Oh,
And
absolutely.
a half hour goes by so quickly, and I know we've got more than a half hour here, so I hope people can stick in with it for a little bit longer time while they're watching it. And then again, I hope Bob we can do it another time or two, here in October, but let's keep the conversation going after that too.
Absolutely. I'm looking forward to it. All right. Well, take care, folks. And Connie, thank you very
Yeah,
much.
thanks so much, Bob.